Every parent wants the best for their child. My daughter really was a fan of a CN show named the Powerpuff Girls. I remember her smile used to curl on my face as I watched her play, how she used to dart about her room, arms stretched out, mimicking the sound of rushing wind. I was aware of how violent the show was, but I knew my daughter was smart and knew not to take such a show so seriously in the course of her own actions. Again, I was a parent and had to make sure she was looking up to the right people, or things for that matter. It was in 2001 and her birthday wasn't too far off, and I really wanted to give her something she couldn't ever forget. A real treasure, something she wouldn't expect. So I took my curiosity of the show off to Amazon.com and eBay. The search results appeared promising. There, it was a trove of children's treasures, but most of the products looked like valuable collectibles or were plushies. Honestly, she's got enough of those things. Then I happened across the image of a DVD case. The casing had this groovy lava lamp effect in black and blue, with half of Bubbles' head peeking up from the bottom of the case, with her eyes staring out. At the top, the traditional Powerpuff Girls logo in pink and black, swerving bold lettering. It even looks like the box art for a Powerpuff Girls Blossom-themed lava lamp. The most weirdest thing was the Japanese text that I could just not read. I translated it and it said, "Evil Spirit," but I was also curious. And because it was Japanese, it was to be shipped from Japan, meaning it would take a while for postage. So I emailed the person selling it, who replied, "There's just nothing like it," with no signature. Only selling it for a 10-year overall including the shipping, I took the chance to buy it, but I was wise to check the thing before giving it to my Lily. After all, I only want the best for her. When it arrived, I hid the package in the living room until late at night, when my girl had fallen asleep. I took myself down to the living room, made myself some tea, opened my laptop and removed the packaging. Just as it appeared on the eBay page with no details, just the imagery. Not even a barcode or hint of credit. The covering was a shiny plastic, and as I opened it, I saw a DVD with the same imagery description, a Bubbles half head peeking out from the bottom, and the drawing of Bubbles and the Powerpuff Girls logo were soft, and the DVD is shaped like an oval. What threw me off guard more than anything was the DVD's rating symbol. For some strange reason, although I received it from Japan, it had a BBFC rating of an 18. An 18? Well, no way am I showing this to my Lily. I checked back on the account on eBay, but the seller's account had already been removed. Gone. I was stuck with the thing. Damn it! Regarding my own thoughts of the show, I felt it was my obligation to judge this thing for myself. How was I supposed to get rid of it without knowing anything about it? Well, the seller did, and it was because of my raging curiosity. Should have just bought her a plushie. I was still puzzled by how it was managed to be given what appeared a Japanese title from Japan, but was manufactured in the UK. If they rated the DVD, surely there would be more copies available around. When there, I concluded my own pondering, assuming it was a unique product, that there was only this single copy, and was perhaps posted to Japan as some form of special gift to whoever. The seller himself, maybe? I plugged in the headphones and watched as it set itself up. On the title screen, I chose Part 2. It came up with a blank start screen, just black. Evil Spirit Bubbles, Part 2. The screen suddenly flashed white, just a second's worth of frame, making me a little uneasy. I swore I've seen something in that single white frame, but it kinda looked like what Lily had seen in that episode the other day where Bubbles is surrounding her sister, Blossom with, as I like to say, is double team. I don't know what the episode was about, but it kinda gave me the creeps. Perhaps an error of some kind? No introduction like any of the regular episodes had. It started with the professor, can't quite remember his name, Utonium or something, staring out at the night sky in his front yard. I noticed how it was just dead silent. I checked my volume, but it was a considerable level. I wasn't having any desire to have it any higher. He looked utterly withdrawn from his surroundings as he stared up at the moon just hanging there. He then proceeded to walk into the house, and he sat himself down in a chair in front of a fire. Everything about him was just pitch black, focusing in on him. Something subliminal like a glitch, a frame flickered of an image of Bubbles. She looked enraged. Dark red surrounding her pupils held a gray figure slowly approached the camera with those sickly red eyes. It was just like that. Back at the screen, the professor appeared distraught as the camera lifted from behind the flicker of the fire to see him, alone in the dark in his chair. The animation looked somewhat spectacular, how it focused in on his heavy breathing. The color tone on his face was almost real. You could see the flickering of the lights and the wave of the shadow reach around and about his face. He was leaning forward, hugging himself, looking scared out of his mind. His breathing was all I could hear in the headphones. What was going on? I felt startled at the loud creak in the living room with the door slowly opening by my side. I hoped it not to be Lily for fear of spoiling this for her, but that was why I was watching this to begin with, if it was suitable. But the way the atmosphere was now, I had no wish to hand this to her at all. I felt the draft and relaxed a little bit, cursing under my breath. Why had I gone and shut off the lights? I was kind of afraid to move. I resumed watching and Utonium turned to look up at the stairs, gasping, hearing the creak of the door to the girl's bedroom. Seeing the similarity of what just happened, I attempted to laugh a little. To calm myself, I realized. I reached out and pushed the door shut and picked up my tea to drink, when I noticed it had gone stone cold and so quickly. Looking back at the screen, Utonium's eyes were bulging, reddening at the sides, his pupils large, swallowing the whites. I felt I started to understand why this DVD wasn't released for more copies. It may have been an experiment for an episode not aired. Maybe it was a side project or was marketed to older fans. That perhaps made sense, but this was a show designed for young girls. The professor had risen from his seat and ever so slowly started to make his way to the stairs. The angle was shot over his shoulder so you felt you were walking with him. The stairs seemed so distant, like miles away. Every step he took, the stairs seemed to draw away from him, reeling back into the dark. A faint figure shot across the screen in front of him and he froze. So did I. He spun around to face the camera, looking side to side, dripping with sweat. A bubbly giggle echoed faintly and then disappeared. Reluctantly, he made his way up the stairs. As he reached the top, he went to grab the handle of the girl's room when he noticed something from across the hallway. At the end, lurking, there was a short pitch-black form standing and facing him. A number of seconds passed by uneasily until it appeared to move forward, gliding in the dark. The professor's breathing was picked up again on my headphones, and I scratched the sides of my face a little, watching. What was this? What the fuck was this? A bold warmth clutched at my shoulder and I felt somebody's breath on my ear. The words, Izabu, muttering softly from a pair of lips. I yelled, swiping out blindly at the dark and switched the light on to find nothing. Absolutely nothing. I realized how loud I was and felt tempted to check upstairs for Lily in case I woken her. I pressed stop and listened out for her. Not a single sound. I felt the need to turn the DVD off, but I felt hooked. Perhaps this was a version intended for adults? If so, maybe one day when Lily's old enough. No. No, what are you saying? You can't give this to your daughter! I pressed play and found that the dark figure was only standing inches away from Utonium. It looked up at him with a round gray face and no eyes. It stretched open its mouth slowly, with a large inhale. As it did so, its high pitch descended into a long, deep drone, reaching a pitch I don't think can ever be attainable by any voice or instrument. The screen warped and twisted into itself slowly, as it reversed its pitch to being suddenly high like a siren. White noise sounded for a brief moment, and then the figure flickered out of vision, restoring to the standard fixed format again. Utonium looked around him, panicking to see if it moved. Where had it gone? Had reality slipped from him? Was he imagining it? Was I imagining it? He turned to face the camera in the screenshot to a close-up of the creature's face, screeching loudly. Jumping, I turned down the volume, completely shaken. There was another single frame that flashed for a second. I rewound the DVD and stopped it. It was her sisters standing side by side, all in gray, and their bedclothes torn as if they were rotting or decaying. Smiles carved edgily onto their faces. Utonium burst into the girls' room to find the two were sleeping soundly and safely. Buttercup, Blossom, but no Bubbles. Something he'd grown used to now. He got on his knees as he reached for the side of the bed, watching them sleep. He smiled, stroking Buttercup's hair. Back on his feet, he looked to the end of the bed by the windows where the blonde darling should have laid rest. A streak-white form rose slowly from the end, darkened eyes and torn mouth, screaming. The screen went to black abruptly, cutting out the sound, and the credits came on. It was finished. I sat in astonished silence for a second before I ejected it. I just didn't know what to do. What could I do with it? There was still the other episode to watch. No chances. I didn't want to take chances of an innocent person stumbling across this. I played the episode part 1, shivering at the stare Bubbles gave me on the cover of the case, and I threw the case. This one did start out as usual, the Japanese Powerpuff Girls being played, and I felt my heart calm itself a little. There was the title announced, Evil Spirit Bubbles Part 1, but no credits. Then an other black screen card appeared with Japanese lettering, and then in bracketing, Play. Loud static in the collection of echoes sounding industrial as if recorded in a factory emerged before the screen went dark again. Utonium was in his lab, and it looked as though he was playing another concoction. The girls emerged from behind him and watched him as he took the chemical X and poured the entire contents into the mix. A stern, determined look appearing on his face. The girls, frightened, kept distance as the pot rumbled and smoke rose from the mixture. Utonium stood back, disconcerted, before Bubbles flew over to the dully colored corroboration of gunk in the pot. The smoke in a swirly, curling motion swept across her face and invaded her lips to her throat, so she inhaled it as she floated. In a fixed state of puzzlement, she began to twitch. The light in the living room went out, making me jump. I looked about me, stopping the DVD for a moment. I had to make sure. There flickered numerous odd frames at her twitches. Somewhere, oh my, just unlike anything I'd seen. Most of the images were of the villains displayed in a realistic fashion that the girls occasionally fought in the series, like Moro Jojo, him, and Fuzzy Lumpkins for all I know. Some appeared mangled, deranged, or shockingly enough, dead. There's just nothing like it. It went silent again and there was static on the screen until it flickered back to Bubbles, staring at the screen with red eyes. Her color switched to gray. The soundtrack began again in reverse. She shot out through the ceiling. The girls didn't follow her but stared out at the hole she had made in the ceiling. I'll never forget this. The next shot was of the teacher, their teacher, in the classroom at the decks. She looked towards the door Bubbles had entered and she glared over at her, teeth bare. She threw herself at the screen with a high-pitched scream, surprising me again, before static sounded and it switched to 3 live-action segments. The first one was hard to make out. Several rippling lines ran up the video as it played. The recording was choppy and the audio rather weak. It showed a man in formal dress approaching the person holding the camera. It was handheld and jolted in some places. The entire conversation was in Japanese, and the man held an unnaturally large stretched out smile throughout. His eyes contained greed and indication of loathing directed towards the camera. Judging by the surroundings, it looked like a room with glass windows. I frowned a little, puzzled. It resorted to the second one with static for a split second, then returned with clear audio of a young girl holding exactly the same DVD I had. The Bubbles picture stared on at me as the girl stood up, smiling proudly at that unique specimen in her hands. The same language chirped from her as she stood before the camera pointing out Bubbles. and the background looked like a lush-looking bedroom. It went fuzzy again, loud static. The emotion of it all tore suddenly, and I found myself gripping at the material in my chair. Japanese was being spoken fluently, rushed and in a panicked tone. As the shaking and movements of the camera stopped from the third and final segment, as it focused on a classroom of Japanese children, wailing and sobbing as they scrambled into the corner of the room, desperation and horror hanging in the sound and sensation of it all. My heart just pounded like a jackhammer, especially when I heard the blabbering of the cameraman. He was trembling. A small figure stood at the other end of the room, dressed in a robe of gray, hiding itself from vision. The cameraman called out to somebody before a splatter of red hit the lens. The man bellowed, expressing grief and further sobbing. The children screamed and the focus died as the camera flung itself back and forth along the hall, indicating a man running. The children following behind him with piercing yells. More blood hit the lens before it resorted to static, and the cartoon returned to the screen. I realized something from when I watched it. The cameraman, the one recording it. A moment he was fixing his recording close to a mirror, where the creature was. It was him, the one who sold me the DVD. I knew from his image on the account. Oh God. I was just gobsmacked. It hadn't just been an intrusion of random real-life sequences. It was a warning. Silence once more. The camera was reeling out of a camera of people staring at Bubbles' lifeless, mangled, gray body. Blossom was crouched, staring at her sister's corpse sadly. Buttercup was at Utonium's side, comforting him as he sobbed. Black started to eat at the screen until there was nothing left. It faded into the next shot of Bubbles marching slowly towards the camera, red eyes and angered. Heavy breathing as if struggling flooded the headphones, gradually getting louder and louder, as the wall behind her scrolled slowly. Suddenly I found myself back to the title screen. Silent. It was over. Overwhelmed with shock, I couldn't find myself to move. After a minute, I reached for my headphones and removed them from my ears. I collected the DVD from the laptop and placed it back into the case. I had to get rid of it. I couldn't even believe what I just watched. Walking up to my room after turning off the light, I heard a subtle hiss, like a whisper directed from across the hall. I got goosebumps. My skin crept and my eyes darted back and forth along the hall. I came to the last stair and found myself staring at a short, black, Powerpuff Girl-like form from the end of the hall. It gave a light giggle and I rushed into my own room, slamming the door shut. My heart was caught in my throat. I couldn't breathe, I couldn't think. It knocked on my door and I almost cried out. Biting my lip, gripping my skin, I yanked open the door to find Lily. Large bags rested under her eyes as she rubbed her eyes as she croaked.
Daddy, I had a bad dream.
I got goosebumps, my skin crept and my eyes darted back and forth along the hall. I came to the last stair and found myself staring at a short black Powerpuff Girl-like form from the end of the hall. It gave a light giggle and I rushed into my own room, slamming the door shut. My heart was caught in my throat, I couldn't breathe, I couldn't think. It knocked on my door and I almost cried out. Biting my lip, gripping my own skin, I yanked open the door to find a Powerpuff Girl. Its eyes were red as she croaked,
Hello.
Then I woke up. I was terrified. Thank God it was a dream, I said calmly. I go downstairs and looked inside the package and there was a plushie of Bubbles. That trickster, I said annoyed, and I lived normally again. So next time if your son or daughter is a fan of Powerpuff Girls, be careful when you are buying. And that, my fellow minions, was Akuryo Bubbles, a Powerpuff Girls Creepypasta by Anonymous. What do I think about this story? I know I'm going to die on this hill, but Akuryo Bubbles is not really a good story, period. The story just sucks, but the lost episode itself actually makes sense, and is believable for a Powerpuff Girls episode until the live action segments appear. What is the point of these? Do they represent something? Is there something I am missing here? Like the smiling man, the girl, the school children in the classroom. I kind of get the second segment, but the first and third are really fucking awful to me. Okay, on to the next thing. The weird supernatural shit happening outside of the VHS. Is this a mental breakdown of the protagonist's mind, or is this him seeing things? I'm going to guess the latter because of the endings. The original ending is just the mandatory jump scare, and it's all a dream cliche. That's it. That's basically it. The new ending is kind of worse somehow with one line. Daddy, I had a bad dream. Normally I wouldn't be this upset over an ending like this, and this is a good poor punchline, but at the beginning this line is written. Every parent wants the best for their child. That line indicates for me that something really bad happened to the daughter later on. Yes, it's cliched as hell, but I expect something that is not good for the kid overall. I may be nitpicking here, but I believe that a story must be straightforward and not too confusing for the reader. Anyway, I'm just very happy that this isn't the godfather of alternate ending creepypastas or Sonic.exe clone again. In fact, I'll say that it is at least a full episode and then another one. Obviously, this is not created by Cartoon Network in universe, but the Powerpuff Girls have shown disturbing stuff in the past, so it is not that far off that an employee made it just to screw with the protagonist. Anyway, our main star, the protagonist, is an idiot. An idiot, people. He lacks eBay knowledge. eBay knowledge is when you don't click on the first thing you see and actually do some research. But this situation didn't happen. At least once he gets the DVD, he has the common sense to not give it to his daughter and watches it because that's a real parent. Also, the evil spirit words in Japanese should have been a dead giveaway that something wasn't right here. He doesn't immediately get scared, but my guy, it is a DVD that someone pranked you with. What are you, Muscle Man from Regular Show? Man, that series finale hit him hard. Really fucking hard. The protagonist talks like his daughter is dead, like he's having flashbacks of the good times he had with her before she passed on. Maybe if the protagonist said my daughter is still alive. By the way, we could have known that vital piece of information. The cliches are used well, even though the protagonist is easily scared. The story has brilliant concepts going for it, but it's still not really that good. What do I give a rating for this creepypasta? A 4.5 out of 10. It is almost halfway good, but because of the major issues I spoke of earlier, it's not higher. But hey, this is my personal opinion. We have all our personal opinions about these stories. And what do you think about this creepypasta? Is it good or bad? Or simply mediocre? What kind of improvements would you have made to the story to make it better? And also keep out for announcements in my community tab so you can be updated. As always, my fellow minions, look out for more videos like this, and I will see you really soon.